Welcome back to Backspace Academy. In this lecture, we'll have a look at the application integration and customer engagement services. We'll then have a look at some examples, and finally, we'll finish up with a hands-on lab where we're going to use the SES service to send an email. AWS Step Functions makes it easy to coordinate the components of distributed applications and microservices using a visual workflow. For example, you may want a second function to always follow the first and only run if and when the first succeeds. And you may want to execute two functions in parallel, for example. You define your application visually as a series of steps. You define the process flow of those steps, and then you can deploy your application automatically. Amazon Simple Workflow Service works in a similar way to step functions in coordinating multiple components of a business process. For new applications, it's recommended to use step functions, not the SWF service. Amazon Simple Notification Service, or SNS for short, is a flexible, fully managed pub/sub messaging service. What that means is that you can create a topic and users subscribe to that topic, and when you publish a message to the topic, the users that have subscribed to that topic will receive that message. It can also be used for push notifications for mobile devices. Amazon Simple Queue Service, or SQS for short, is a fully managed message queuing service, and that makes it easy to decouple your applications from demand. What that means is that it allows messages to build up in a queue until the processing server that processes those messages can catch up with the demand. So let's have a look at an example of using these services to decouple our application from its demand. So let's just say we have an application and it's running on an auto-scaling group of EC2 instances. And that application is a process server. It's not a web server. It's processing messages as they come in. And those messages could have information on an image that needs to be processed, or a video that needs to be processed, or a cryptography problem that needs to be solved. And so those messages come in, and as that demand increases, or the number of messages coming in increases, then the auto-scaling group will also add more instances to cope with that increasing demand. So what happens if that increase in demand occurs over a 1 second period? And that is a very large spike. Our auto-scaling group cannot handle that sort of scenario because it's going to take at least 5 or 10 minutes for instances to launch and be up and running. So what happens in the meantime is a problem for us. In a similar way that a bank has a queue, and so when people come into a bank and the teller is too busy to serve them, they can build up in a queue until such point in time that the teller can reach them. We can do the same thing with the SQS, or Simple Queue Service. We can let those messages come in and they can build up in a queue until such time that our auto-scaling group of EC2 instances can get to that queue and empty out the queue. And that is great because we have now decoupled our demand from our application. And so if spikes come in, our application can handle it. But what happens when the average demand exceeds what our capacity is? So I'll give you an example. So we've got our bank, and all of a sudden we had 5 tellers, and 4 of those tellers have become sick. They've got influenza or whatever. But the same amount of people are coming through the door, and the queue is going to build up, and the queue will never decrease. It will continue to increase in size indefinitely. The same thing can happen in this architecture. For example, we might have a whole heap of unhealthy instances, and all of a sudden, our capacity cannot meet demand. And so that SQS queue is going to grow indefinitely. Or we may have done an update to our application that is faulty, and that SQS queue continues to increase. So what we can do is that we can set up a CloudWatch metric, and that will alert us with an SNS email notification that our SQS queue is continuing to grow and that we need to investigate that further. Now, normally we would use a metric on the instances to signal that those instances are overloaded and we need to increase our capacity of our autoscaling group. Now, in this situation, that's probably not going to happen because these messages are just going to build up in the queue. And so we need a way of notifying the autoscaling service that the queue is increasing. And the way we can do that is with, again, a CloudWatch metric that will alert the autoscaling group that the SQS queue is too big and to put on more instances to reduce the size of the queue. And at the same time, when the queue is empty, CloudWatch can send a metric to the autoscaling group to reduce the number of instances and terminate those so that we're not wasting those resources. Let's have a look at some customer engagement services. Amazon Connect is a self-service contact center in the AWS cloud, and that is delivered on a pay-as-you-go pricing model. It has a drag and drop graphical user interface, and that allows you to create process flows that define customer interactions without having any coding at all. Amazon Pinpoint allows you to send email, SMS, and mobile push messages for targeted marketing campaigns, as well as direct messages to your individual customers, for example, an order confirmation. Amazon Simple Email Service, or SES for short, is a cloud-based bulk email sending service. And coming up next, we're going to be doing a lab using the Simple Email Service to send an email. So make sure that you download the Introduction to AWS lab notes, and let's get into it.
In the AWS Management Console, we go to Services, and over on the right-hand side here, we've got Messaging Services. We click on SES. And the first thing we need to do is that we need to verify our email address. So we just go to Email Addresses, and we'll put in we click on here to verify a new email address. And then we click on Verify this email address. So what's happened now is that AWS has sent an email to us to verify our email. Once we click on that link, we'll be able to continue to use the SES service. Okay, so when you've clicked on the verification link to the email, you'll get a congratulations message that you've verified your email. So just click out of that and go back into the SES Management Console. If we refresh the screen, we can see that it has now been verified. So what we can do now is we can send a test email. So just click on Send a Test Email. We'll put in, what I'm going to do is just send a message from myself to myself so that I don't have to verify any further or any additional email addresses. And just put the subject as test. Let's copy that over. And we'll send that test email. And that will be happening. And so what we can do is we'll go into our email account and we'll see that that test email will have been sent. Okay, so I've just gone and checked my email account, and yes, that test email went through fine. Now, you might be questioning, what do we do now? It's one thing to send a single email, but that's not much good to us. We want to send out bulk email. Now, obviously, sending out bulk email it can be spam. So AWS are mindful of that, and so there is a process that you have to go through to apply to use the SES service to send out bulk email. So the way you do that is you go into just go into sending statistics here, and you can see there is a link there to request a sending limit increase. So just reading off there, so your Amazon SES account has sandbox access in region US East Virginia. And so that is very limited to what you can do. And so if you're going to be using this for example, in an enterprise application, then you would want to go there and request a sending limit increase. And so just click on that and it'll take you to a form that you fill out with all your details, and you just submit that to the AWS support department and they will make that happen for you. So that's all I need to show you now on the SES service, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.